I'm sure most of you have looked at Renault Triber and looked right past it. But the next time you see one, give it a little nod of respect. It deserves it. You might find it hard to believe. After all, how can something so small in size, so small in price, and with such a small engine be a capable 7-seater? Feels like chota muh, badi baat. Sure, the Triber isn't lavish and plush, but if you were looking for a big family car on a tight budget, ignoring the Triber is a terrible idea. Here's what works and what doesn't. Yes, the design is a stumbling block for the Triber. Cast aside your confusion about whether it's a hatchback, SUV or MPV, because it doesn't matter. What the Triber is purpose-built, and you'll see that on the inside. The question that trips me out though is, how can this be under 4 meters in length? It looks so much longer. Have they cheated somehow? Because on paper, this is as long as a Baleno. So they have been clever with their design. And on that note, take a look at the wheels. Are those alloys? Now let's move to the inside where we'll get more of this Renault flavor. Forget Honda, the Triber shows that Renault can be the masters of space and packaging. They've used every millimeter and every rupee with utmost care and thought. This might be hard to believe, but we packed in 2 6-footers into the 3rd row and they had headroom to spare. Shoulder room was good, and they said they could spend an hour there comfortably. This 3rd row could be compared with bigger and more expensive cars like the XL6 or Ertiga or the Carens. Sure, they will feel more plush and a bit more comfortable, but the sheer utility that the Triber offers is immense. With dedicated aircon vents, you're comfy there. With the sliding 2nd row, not only do you have enough space in the 3rd row, it still leaves enough room for adults in the middle row. Also, I absolutely love that Renault have offered one-touch fold and tumble function for the middle row seat so that it's so much easier getting to the 3rd row. The only catch is, with the 3rd row of seats in use, this is basically a city car because there's almost no luggage space on offer. But the Triber is clever. So if you were to remove one of the seats in the 3rd row, which you can easily and quickly, you'd have as much luggage space as a hatchback. So it's still a good 6-seater. But if you were to remove both the seats in the 3rd row, you'd have as much luggage space as a Skoda Octavia. So if you were looking for a luggage specialist on a budget, this is it. As a 5-seater, the Triber is a spacious family hatchback. Not great for 3 abreast, and there's no headrest here. But any other complaints like footroom under the front seats go away because you can slide the 2nd row back and stretch out. The seats also hold you well, keep you comfortable for longer drives. It puts you in that picnic mode. The large windows are great to look out of, and there's also that picnic box, basically a storage which is also chilled, where you can pack in some sandwiches and drinks. And let me stress on this air conditioning is very effective. The best bit though is the suspension. This affordable MPV feels thoroughly engineered. It won't feel fragile over bad roads. Highway speeds don't faze it. Actually, at 120 kilometers an hour, you'll wish the suspension was softer. But there's a reason it isn't. When you load it up with 7 people, it still feels clean and composed to drive. With 182 millimeters of ground clearance, even with a full load, it didn't scrape. So it has SUV vibes too. Think about it. It's a bit like an old school Innova on a budget. Although, for a 7-seater, the Triber's engine sounds like a bit of a joke. A 1-liter, 3-cylinder, not turbocharged. But as I realized, there's nothing to laugh about the Triber's performance. I drove it uphill with 7 people on board in 2nd gear with the engine at idle. It did it. So your weekend trips with the family to a hill station, you still have 1st gear remaining for the steep inclines. For city duties, 2nd and 3rd gear are enough. You can go from 18 kilometers an hour to 100 kilometers an hour in third calmly. And we would recommend the manual over the AMT any day. On highways, you can sit at 80 to 100 kilometers an hour with power in reserve for overtakes. And you could drive faster, the engine doesn't feel stressed. But you do feel the firmness of the suspension holding it back instead. The problem with this engine was its refinement. It was noisy, it felt rough, didn't feel smooth to drive. But with the BS 6.2 updates, that's in the past tense. This engine isn't sophisticated and punchy, but it is simple, hardy, and effective. It now matches the rest of the package. Since there's no magic involved, this 3-cylinder engine, if revved hard, does get noisy. If you pull it at low revs, it will feel vibey. And no, it won't feel exciting and fast. It's meant to be dutiful. It has been engineered to be dutiful with 7 on board. The price for that is fuel efficiency. In the city, you can get 10 to 13 kmpl, and on the highway, 15 to 18 kmpl, which is still pretty solid. The Triber's cabin experience is similarly solid. It's not going to wow you, but it will reassure you. It's in the design and the materials in use. The plastics look good and they feel reassuring. The dashboard is simple. Renault aren't being stingy. They have splurged where needed, like on safety equipment. It gets ESC, traction control, hill hold, DPMS, and dual airbags as standard. The top spec variant gets 4 airbags. The Triber needs to do more for the third row with proper retractable 3-point seatbelts. Similarly, also for the middle occupant in the second row. But if you're looking for wow features, then a faster, sharper touchscreen, automatic air conditioning, and definitely auto headlamps and auto wipers would sit right on the top of our must-have list. These would up the Triber's appeal massively. The Triber is a family car that's offering you a lot of flexibility in a small size and small price. Sure, it has compromises, but it's chosen them well. It doesn't feel like chota muh badi baat. It feels like it's putting its money where its mouth is, stretching every rupee. So if you're looking for a sensible and hardy, big car for the family on a small budget, the Triber deserves a closer look. I do wish it had more appeal to tempt more people, for which I have a couple of ideas. For one, Renault should offer it with blacked out interiors and captain seats, like the XL6. And they could also package in the turbocharged petrol engine with the CVT automatic from the Kartikeya. Which one would you prefer? Hit us up in the comments.